Up next in the broadcast, in a surprise twist, North Korea accepts Seoul's offer for talks on resuming operations at the shuttered Gaeseong Joint Industrial Complex. The two will meet a week from now on August 14th. After replacing her point man on future strategy, President Park Geun-hye puts the focus on developing new software talent in order to boost the tech industry and the creative economy. In his first address since his inauguration, the new president of Iran says he is open to talks about his nation's nuclear policies, but warned not to come to the dialogue table with threats. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Wednesday, August 7th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Gaeseong.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you for joining us. We begin this evening with news of a possible breakthrough over the shuttered Gaeseong Industrial Complex.
In a sudden turn of events, the two Koreas have agreed to hold their 7th round of talks aimed at reopening the joint business park next week. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Park Geun-hye has the details.
The two Koreas will return to the negotiating table next Wednesday in Gaeseong for another shot at reopening their jointly run factory zone in the north. This comes after North Korea unexpectedly broke its silence Wednesday, more than a week after South Korea made its final proposal for talks on the Gaeseong Industrial Complex. In a statement, the North state-run Korean Central News Agency said that both countries should work together to prevent another closure of the complex in the future. It also said it will lift the temporary ban on South Korean workers entering the complex, which was put into effect in April, and promised safe passage to all South Koreans going in. Seoul was quick to respond, saying that it evaluates North Korea's latest statement as positive.
We hope to resolve the issues surrounding the Gaeseong Industrial Complex and to reach a logical agreement on its normalization at our upcoming meeting.
Operations at the joint business park came to a halt 4 months ago when the North unilaterally withdrew all North Korean workers amid an escalation in inter-Korean tensions. In an attempt to revive their last remaining symbol of economic cooperation, the two Koreas held 6 rounds of discussions last month but failed to reach an agreement. Seoul has stressed that Pyongyang must provide safeguards against future closures before talks can resume, and there are concerns following Wednesday's statement that the North may not have changed its stance. South Korea's Unification Ministry didn't want to elaborate on the details of the North's offer, saying only that the issues will be discussed at next week's meeting. 황성희, Arirang News.
Now, prior to the North's surprise statement on Wednesday, Seoul's Unification Ministry announced that it would begin handing out insurance payments to the South Korean companies that did business in Gaeseong.
The ministry said it has set aside a total of $250 million for the more than 100 companies that applied for insurance payments. They can still pick up their money starting Thursday at the Korea Export-Import Bank. But once they do, their rights over their factories and assets in Gaeseong will be transferred to the government, although they can repurchase them in the future if the factory zone reopens.
And now for an expert's take on the latest developments surrounding the Gaeseong Industrial Complex. Joining us now on the line is Professor Han Yong-sup from Korea National Defense University. Professor Han, thank you for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Professor, it took over a week for North Korea to respond to Seoul's final offer for dialogue, and we thought they turned us down yesterday through state media. What triggered Pyongyang's announcement this evening?
I think Pyongyang judged our offer to final dialogue was really serious, and South Korean government, on the other hand, was preparing to pay the insurance for the closure of the South Korean business in Gaeseong. So I think Pyongyang thought that it is really final offer for dialogue.
So, Professor.
Yeah.
Right. So how sincere do you think the North is this time around about reopening the shuttered industrial zone?
I think there has been a mutual understanding between Seoul and Pyongyang that Gaeseong Industrial Complex should be operated independent of political relationship between the two Koreas. But North Korea unilaterally shut down, and since that time, North Korea has been on the defensive side because they made the unilateral shutdown without thinking of South Korea's plausible likely response and without calculating the serious economic impact on North Korean side.
Well,
so I think it's they are very serious now, and you hear that their North Korean Committee for Unification of Fatherland, they announced that they will, reopen the Gaeseong industrial complex, and they will provide some assurance for South Korea to prevent the occurrence of the closure of the Gaeseong industrial complex. So if they come to the dialogue table with that kind of serious attitude, I think they will make some compromise.
Well, speaking of the sticking point, which has been the insistence on safeguards against future closures by Seoul, South Korea stuck by its stance. And is it safe to say that Seoul's approach to Pyongyang actually worked?
Yeah, I think South Korea's demand, continuous demand to prevent any recurrence of the shutdown should be guaranteed by North Korea. I think that kind of principled approach worked out very well.
So what else can we expect from the 7th round of talks slated for next Wednesday?
I think the only complication factor is that if we cannot succeed in the 7th round of talks, the next week, South Korea and the United States will conduct Freedom Guardian military drill. And before that, I think the two sides will be pressured to make a compromise.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your insights and for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was our Professor Han Yong-sup from Korea National Defense University. Korea may be one of the advanced nations in the world, but when it comes to corruption, the country ranks poorly on the global scale.
Our Ji Myung-gil joins us now in the studio to tell us how serious a problem is and how the Korean government is committed to stamping out the persistent irregularities. So, Myung-gil, welcome back to the studio. How bad is the corruption?
Well, hello guys. Well, most people do agree that Korea needs to make a serious effort to tackle corruption problems. According to an international survey this year, Korea is the most corrupt developed country in Asia. This was based on a survey on 2,000 foreign businessmen living on the continent. Hong Kong-based firm Political and Economic Risk Consultancy ranked Korea the 10th most corrupt out of 17 countries in Asia. The corruption index was just shy of 7 this year, the worst in 10 years. Now this is twice as corrupt as Singapore and worse than Malaysia and Thailand. Let's hear what Koreans think about corruption in Korea.
Corruption in Korea is very serious. I think it will never go away in my lifetime.
Korea should quickly enact an anti-corruption bill to eradicate corruption.
Right, Myung-gil, so why is corruption so rampant here in the nation?
Well, experts say the main issue is collusion between government officials and Korea's big conglomerates. Since conglomerates exert a great deal of power over Korea's economy, tax evasion, embezzling slush funds, and asking for favors in exchange for bribes have become prevalent in Korean society. Also, light punishment for those convicted of corruption is a major contributing factor.
If you yourself or myself committed the same crime, we may have to end our life, the rest of our life in the prison. That's I'm certain. So the money talks too much. In other words, the presidential pardon should not be allowed. Everybody should be equal in front of law. So whether you are wealthy or not, law should be equal.
The expert said another cause of corruption is that Korea does not protect whistleblowers. According to a survey by the non-governmental agency Transparency International Korea in June, 4 out of 10 young Koreans said they would not report corruption to the authorities out of skepticism of the law's effectiveness or for the fear of reprisal. 55% said they would report irregularities, 33% said it depends on each case, 8% said they would never report it. Of the respondents, only 4% said they had reported a case of corruption before.
Right, and reporting on this is not only just about moral obligation. Corruption in itself is an economic hindrance.
Yes, Sean. Well, bribery and corruption hinder fair competition, and it also saps the economic vitality out of a country. Experts say it's not just an ethical, moral issue. They say it's directly connected with the people's livelihoods.
Nigeria is actually producing oil, so if government is not corrupted and people can share the fruits of oil industry, then the people's livelihood will be very affluent. But at the moment, only the few political elite share the fruits of oil wealth with the multinational. In other words, the bulk of the nation are suffering by the poverty because they cannot enjoy the wealth of oil.
Kim also added, if the corruption perception index drops by 1 point, the gross domestic product or GDP per capita rises by 2.6%. And he pointed out that Singapore's economic growth miracle was made possible by its no-nonsense approach to tackling corruption.
So what is Korean government doing to eradicate this chronic irregularities?
Yes, well, the cabinet last week approved Korea's first anti-corruption bill in order to strengthen the punishment against the government officials involving irregularities, and as part of efforts to root out corruption in the public sector.
We believe the anti-corruption bill will prevent public officials from accepting illegal favors, kickbacks, and carrying out duties related to their personal interest. The bill will help raise the Korean government's integrity.
If officials receive bribes related to work, then they could face criminal charges. But if the bribes are out of their work duties, they could face fines of up to 5 times the kickbacks received. The legislation will be submitted to the National Assembly for a vote this month.
All right, Myung-gil, thank you so much for that report.
Sure.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features restrictions is on the rise. Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meeting came on maneuver trying to cover up the South's true intentions. Taking you overseas to Iran, the nation's new president says he wants international talks, not threats, when it comes to his country's nuclear program.
Hassan Rouhani is calling for serious negotiations with the West, insisting both sides can resolve their differences. Kim Hyun-bin reports on Iran's reaching out.
Hassan Rouhani has opened the door to diplomatic talks with the United States on Tehran's highly disputed nuclear program. Speaking in his first new conference Tuesday, Rouhani said he wanted to resolve the dispute and was ready to enter negotiations.
We are determined to resolve the dispute. We are ready for serious and substantive discussions. If the other side is also similarly ready to talk, I am confident that the concerns from both sides through discussion can be resolved.
Rouhani's election victory over conservative rivals in June raised hopes for a diplomatic solution to the nuclear issue. He said Iran's nuclear program is the right of the Iranian people and will not be abandoned. But he emphasized Tehran will continue on the basis of international law, sparking cautious optimism in the West.
There are steps they need to take to meet their international obligations and find a peaceful solution to this issue. And the ball is in their court.
Western powers in Israel accuse Iran of attempting to develop nuclear weapons. But Iran has repeatedly insisted its nuclear program is solely for peaceful purposes. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
In as technologically savvy of a society as Korea, it may be surprising to hear of a shortage in software talent. Unstable job security and salaries encourage very few youngsters to pursue this path, but the president has pledged to change that. Yu Leon reports on how well that vision is going so far.
In Korea, the software industry is commonly referred to as the 4D industry: dirty, difficult, dangerous, and dreamless. While the country has a strong foothold in the manufacturing sector, the software industry remains underdeveloped and is one of the least popular industries for employment. The Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, in a report Wednesday, cited low pay as the main reason for the lack of interest, since small to mid-sized companies make up a large chunk of the software industry. Add that to the fact that the lifespan of software technology is relatively short, and the average retirement age for those in this industry is younger than in others. So it's no surprise that college students are opting to take different career paths. While the number of total college graduates has risen consistently over the past 4 years, graduates of those in software-related departments have slid by over 12%. If President Park Geun-hye's vision for a creative economy is to be realized, that needs to change. But no change seems imminent at this stage. For that reason, the Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning has been under fire recently. The ministry earlier this year spoke of creating a separate government-organized entity to help boost the software industry by June, and it was also due to announce a plan to reform the software sector, but neither happened. That lack of progress is one reason Yoon Chang-bun, a renowned IT expert and the former chief of broadband service provider Hanaro Telecom, was recently named as Senior Secretary to Future Strategy. As the government continues to make adjustments, it remains to be seen when it will introduce solid measures to successfully nurture software talent in the near future. Yu Leon, Arirang News.
Well, this year marks the 10th anniversary of Hallyu, or the Korean wave, and to celebrate the milestone, some K-pop's biggest fans from countries as far as Turkey and Peru have been invited to Korea for a special adventure. Akanya Lee caught up with some of them.
Hallyu, or the Korean wave, is going strong worldwide with its addictive K-pop beats, melodramatic TV shows, and all things Korea.
The food, it should be more popular because it's really tasty. K-pop is the best.
2013 marks the 10th year anniversary of Hallyu, which all started with one Korean TV series.
Winter Sonata first aired in Japan in 2003, and it became popular not just there, but in China and in Southeast Asian countries. So we mark that as the launch of Hallyu spreading globally.
And to commemorate this milestone, the Korea Tourism Organization has invited some of Hallyu's biggest fans for a visit. Under the theme Surfing the Korean Wave, 30 enthusiasts of Korean pop culture from 22 different countries are in Seoul this week. They're here on a 5-day tour to get first-hand experiences with Hallyu. This includes learning how to dance just like their favorite K-pop stars.
With all my sweat, I think it's very obvious that it's not very easy.
From K-pop fan club presidents to radio DJs, these honorary Hallyu ambassadors help spread Korean culture in their respective countries.
I've been a fan of K-pop for the past 12 years. It's everything about K-pop that I like.
Sue says she's just one of many passionate fans in France, as she shows me her tattoos of Korean K-pop groups Super Junior and Dongbang Shingi written out on her right forearm, and names of individual members on her left. But K-pop is not the only aspect of Hallyu that these fans are promoting. At the Korea House, which introduces visitors to the traditional culture of Korea, the fans got a hand at cooking some sungchae dumplings.
I think it's important to promote not only the K-pop, which is extremely important, but there are more things important into it. So, for example, the Korean culture.
But regardless of nationality or even age, it is Hallyu that seems to be the common thread.
So I think that K-pop fans feel somehow special and unique in their own way, and that brings them together.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Professional golfers from around the world are just one day away from teeing off at the PGA Championship, the last major this season.
And there are 3 South Koreans competing, and Stephen Che is in the Sports Center for a preview. Hello there.
Hey guys, the PGA Championship taking place at Oak Hill Country Club in New York is the last major event of the tour, which means that the competition will be as rough as it is thick. 3 South Korean golfers, Choi Kyung-ju, better known as KJ Choi, Yang Yong-eun, and Bae Sang-moon are all hoping to add a trophy to their mantle. Of the 3, Yang is the only one to have won a major, and coincidentally, it was the PGA Championship back in 2009. The winner will take home a grand prize of about $7.7 million, the highest purse of the 4 major tournaments. The golfers will tee off on Thursday local time and seek to make the cut for the final round, which is on Sunday. Let's move on to some Major League Baseball. Cincinnati Reds leadoff man Choo Shin-soo was just named the team's Heart and Hustle Award winner, but the Reds may need to hustle themselves if they want to keep their star outfielder. The rumor mills are turning as to where the choo-choo train will make his next stop, as he's a free agent after the season. Some say the New York Yankees, who are in need of a capable outfielder, may dish out big bucks for Choo, and the crosstown rival Mets have also been mentioned. The Reds will most likely want to discuss a contract extension with Choo, but the South Korean seems content with testing his value on the market. And rounding out the bases, it's time to talk about Wednesday's KBO action. The Nexen Heroes and the Tucson Bears faced off in Game 2 of their series tonight. Both teams looking to get ahead. In the bottom of the first, Kim Hyun-soo single scores 1. Bears add 2 more, 3-0 Tucson. Next inning, bases loaded. Nexen strikes back with Yoo Han-jun's single. It's tied 3-3. And we're going to the bottom of the second, 5-3 Tucson. Then Kim Hyun-soo hits a 2-run long ball to right, 7-3 Tucson. Fast forward to the top of the fifth, 7-5 the score. Nexen's Kim Min-sung homers to left, tied again, 7-7. But Tucson tacks on 4 more and holds on to this one with a final score of 11-7. And taking a look at the scores from around the league, we have Lotte and Gia in the top of the 9th. Lotte up 7-1. LG over NC 14-5. And SK defeats Hanwha 7-1. That does it for me in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Temperatures in parts of the nation soared above the mid-30s today.
And tomorrow, it looks like the capital Seoul will have its hottest day so far this year. Let's go over to our Kwon Soa at the Weather Center for the details. Soa, hello.
Hi guys, you just said it and I'll confirm it. It's going to get even hotter tomorrow.
Right, not exactly what I was hoping to hear, but so we're approaching 10:30 p.m. Things must have cooled off a little bit by now.
A little bit like you said, Sean, but it's not exactly what you would call a pleasant night because temperatures are still over 30 degrees in some parts of the nation like in Daegu, and here in Seoul it's 29 degrees.
So we are in for another tropical night.
Yes, Tia, very high chance of that happening. So what is causing this blistering heat? Maybe a look at our satellite map will give us an answer. The high pressure system in the North Pacific is gaining more control over the Korean peninsula as it is expanding. And with the absence of heavy showers like yesterday, it was even hotter today. And no relief is in sight this week. And unfortunately, as I said before, it's going to get a tad hotter tomorrow. In fact, the capital Seoul should break this year's record, soaring to 35 degrees, and 37 is expected in Daegu, while Busan hits 34. And moving over to other places, incredibly hot in Daejeon and Jeju Island too, and even Dokdo and Mungungang will rise a few degrees. So please take care of yourselves, everyone, and also people around you. And I'll be back with another update after midnight.
Thank you, Soa. And that's our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.